Okay, we are good. Okay, so what I wanted to say was I want to welcome our viewers to the Artist Talk series here at the Pump House Regional Arts Center, located in the beautiful Arts District in La Crosse, Wisconsin. My first guest here is David Dobbs. Hey, David.
Hi, Scott.
So David and I, yeah, we took a long trip. Well, I thought it was long, the 5 blocks to get all your stuff here. And but it was great. And so I guess I wanted to start talking about the show that you have hanging at the Pump House called Distorted Nostalgia. And I'm just going to throw up the first uh, image here.
hmm
And so first, tell me what what your background is, like who are you?
Okay. I was born here in La Crosse. I was actually born at St. Francis Hospital just on West Ave. Um, and after high school, I went to Minneapolis to get my degree. I got a Bachelor of Arts in Art History, then a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting and Drawing. And then my advisor was the department chair, and he's like, "Well, just apply here for grad school." I was like, "Well, I'm going to apply to a bunch of different places." And he's like, "Well, just apply here too." I was like, "Okay, okay."
Huh.
And they gave me the best deal. Like, I got a full fellowship, and I got to teach for 3 years at the University of Minnesota. So I was like, "Okay, I'm staying here."
You can't pass that up.
No, I couldn't.
Hmm.
And I'm really grateful to my advisor, Clarence Morgan, for suggesting it and saved me quite a lot of money. I'll just say that.
Wonderful.
But then after grad school, like I did a few residencies around the country and one in China. And then I served 2 years in AmeriCorps. I came back to La Crosse and served 2 years of AmeriCorps. There's a piece of mine that is still up in 10 years later. It's on the fence around shoe homes. There's all these put-in cups in the fence. And that was one of the projects that I did while I was in AmeriCorps here. Um, and then after that, I went and worked at an art center in northern Minnesota. And then now I came back home and I'm teaching as an adjunct instructor at UWL.
Okay, well, at some point you and I are going to have to talk about the China residency,
Yeah, I've
which
been to China 3 times.
3 times. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about that, but that's for a different interview. So today we're going to talk about the artwork that you have hanging here.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me, where did the inspiration come for this whole series, this body of work?
Mhm.
Where did that come from?
Yes. So I consider myself a conceptual artist. So all of my art is steeped in their ideas. And this is just one series out of, I've got about 5 different series of artworks that I work on. It kind of ebbs and flows, which I'm working on. But this I've worked on for 15 years now. And this series actually came out of my trip to China, though, one of my trips to China. I was doing research for a Fulbright scholarship. And I was like, oh, I'm trying to connect my art with ancient Chinese art and trying to do that. And I'm in China doing research. And one of the people I was staying with, who was a graduate student at the Beijing Film Academy, like was looking at my application and he's like, dude, make art about your culture, not mine. And I was like, oh, oh. So I went back to the US, came back to the US here, and I still had a year left in grad school. And I was just like, what is my culture? And I started really thinking about that. Like, what is culture for a white boy who grew up in Wisconsin? And a lot of what I thought my culture was about pop culture. Whereas, like, movies and television have so informed what I think culture is about. And so I started watching like all of these really old films and old movies. I started with black and white stuff, and then just kept looking at all these old films, and I started noticing a pattern. I started noticing that most of our pop culture looks at the past. This isn't really like what I was thinking this stuff was about to begin with. At first, like these images just started appearing to me because I had really terrible internet at the time. And like these moments would just like appear, they would freeze while I was watching a movie online on my computer. And I was like, oh, there's something beautiful there. And like the first one I ever did was from Casablanca at the end scene where Bogart is talking and he's saying you got to get on that plane and go. And then Ingmar Bergman is like, it froze and she had her mouth open and her eyes closed and she looked kind of like this. And I was just like, oh, there's something really beautiful there. So I just screen captured that and I painted it. And I did a number of these for about a year or so, where it's like they were all just these screen captures. And I kept painting them and painting them. I didn't really know what I was doing yet. I was just like, there's something beautiful here. I just want to make it. And that's one of the great things about graduate school is you just have the time to just experiment and just be like, I'm going to try this and see what happens. But then after I got out of graduate school, I got into a couple residencies and I started making these paintings more and more. And I kept thinking about this idea though, that it's like all of these things that I'm making are looking at the past. And a good example of that was Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain is from 1951, but it takes place during the silent film era, like 20 years prior. And they're looking at the past, and all the music in the film is from the past. And I kind of latched on to Singing in the Rain and Gene Kelly specifically, because it seemed like most of his movies had that theme, where it's like they're looking at the past, they're looking back at the past with this kind of nostalgia. And so I started focusing more and more on those ideas. The paintings themselves went from being kind of organically shaped. Like the first few ones I did almost look just like posterized, where it's like, it just separates into the pixels. But then I started intentionally like making them look geometric and pixelated. And I started pushing that farther and farther until now, like I'm using a tiny little brush to like go in and create like these little pixels by hand. So that's kind of where it came from. That it was kind of like a thread that started one place, and then now I've come to a very different place. But now I'm really pushing that idea of just we're looking at the past. Every time we look at something on as a film or on television, like most of the time they're concerned with the past. And we really feel comfortable with what's familiar. And so that's usually the kind of pop culture that we consume is what's familiar. So I've really been pushing that, and I'm not really looking so much at like the contemporary aspects of that, but looking at how that has shaped us as a culture from like 75, 50, 40, 30 years ago, and trying to move up towards, the present day, which is the last image we're looking at is the most current one that I've ever done. But this image here is from An American in Paris with Leslie Kahn and Gene Kelly, which it takes place kind of in the present day of when they filmed it, but all the music is from like 20 years before that.
And then when you decide on the image that you're going to capture, how do you go about deciding that this is the moment that you want to paint?
I still kind of do it randomly. Like on my computer, I have about 1,000 different images that like I'll just screen capture something and put it in a file in a folder. And then when I go to look at a new painting, to start a new painting, I'll go in through this file and just look at a bunch of images and be like, okay, this is talking about what I want to talk about, but it doesn't look very good and it's not a very interesting composition, so I'm not going to use it. So I kind of filter it out that way and then get to the ones where it's like, okay, there's an interesting composition here and it's saying what I wanted to say.
Okay, it's funny on this particular image. The title is "Our Love Is Here to Stay," but if you didn't know the title and you didn't know the movie, it might look a little, um,
Aggressive.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that's the idea. I've had other people say this.
Oh, okay.
Um, One of
I
the
just,
reasons why it's like that, though, is like I try not to get too political when I'm talking about my work, but in many ways, my work is very political when you really delve into it. And one of the things that when I was researching about this film, An American in Paris, it was really kind of creepy, actually, to me. Leslie Caron was 18, and Gene Kelly, I think, was 32 or 34. And it's about the romance between the two. And it felt a little creepy to me, so I wanted to make the image a little creepy. So a lot of those things I don't want to make them like so overt, but they are there, and people like you and other people like will catch on to it and be like, "Well, something about this doesn't feel right." So I like to do that, but like I said, I don't want to be hitting people over the head with a sledgehammer.
right, right. Well, let's move on to the next painting.
This is one of my favorites.
The General.
Yeah.
First, tell me what's the movie?
This is from a TV show. This is from
Show.
the TV show called The Prisoner, which was
Ah,
a British TV show. Like once you know it and you look at it, then you're like, oh yeah, that's The Prisoner. Like that's Patrick McGowan. He's wearing the vest or the jacket that he pretty much wears through every episode of the show. Um, you start to recognize it. But this one, I actually had a documentary done on this painting. When I was living in northern Minnesota, Lakeland Public Television did a half-hour documentary on me creating this painting over the course of 6 months. This painting took 6 months to make. Most of my paintings take a very long time. But yeah, this one is from The Prisoner. This one is more talking about like how we keep recycling the same ideas over and over again. Because The Prisoner was one of the first shows to really talk about these ideas of authoritarianism and the group collective consciousness and how that shapes culture. Um, but then this TV show has also been remade. They remade it, I think it was 2009, 2010. They remade it as an AMC movie or a miniseries that it was. It had Jim Caviezel and the, uh, the guy who played Gandalf. I forget his name. But Ian McKellen.
yes.
The remake was really good, but it's nowhere near as good as the original. But that's what this one is kind of about. But this one for me was more. I wanted to do something with The Prisoner because it talks so much about how culture shapes us as people and as not only as individuals but as a group as well. How culture shapes us. So I just really wanted to bring this one more to the public consciousness again to talk more about like these things that this TV show talks about.
And then on this one, I know you had mentioned this once before, earlier, not in this interview, but the black lines, the
Yeah.
framing on this.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
This is something that I used to do. I don't do this anymore. But what I used to do is I used to make it so that every canvas was the same ratio, like the same aspect ratio as my computer screen. And so every image, because this would have traditionally been a 4:3 image, but then you put it on a computer and it like makes it into a different size. And so I
Hmm.
put those bars on there to keep that same aspect ratio to talk about also how we're looking at these older media not the same way that people looked at it when they first saw it. But like over the years, I think this was one of the last ones I did with the black bars on it. Sometimes they'd have black bars on the sides. Sometimes they'd be thicker, or like the last image we're going to look at had a black bar just on the bottom. But I don't really do that anymore because I just I found most people don't really get it, and it's not really necessary.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where it's like, like as an artist yourself, you have that idea, and really, as an artist, you're almost like a carver, where you have this idea and you're kind of just stripping away the non-essential things until you get to really the core of it. And that's what I'm still doing. I'm still honing this idea the best I can.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let's go on to the next one. Judy.
Yeah, this one it has Judy Garland. This is the third Judy Garland painting I'd ever done, and maybe like the fifth or sixth one with Gene Kelly. The one I'm working on right now too has Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron from An American in Paris. But yeah, this one is from the film Summer Stock. I think this was 1950 or 1949. Um, but yeah, this one has Judy Garland and Gene Kelly. It's during this scene that really kind of talks about the whole theme of the movie, where it's like they have these people dressed up nice in suits, and they're doing promenade, and they're doing kind of a barn dance. They're in this big barn with this band, and they're doing like traditional like barn dancing or square dancing, I think. Um, and then like all of these other people that Judy Garland had let stay in her barn, like these younger people, like come down and start playing all this jazz music, and then there's this really cool dance number between Gene Kelly and Judy Garland right after that. But it talks a lot about kind of the way that culture shifts when generational thinking shifts. So that's really kind of what this one is about.
Okay, great. And let's hit the last one here.
Yeah, this is
Uh,
the most complicated.
yes, yes. Can you describe what happened and what's going on?
Yeah, this is from The Walking Dead. I think it's season 8, but I can't remember if it's episode 7 or episode 8. But if you look at my body of work, this is the only painting I've done in this series that doesn't prominently feature white people. The main characters in this painting, these two people, there's an African American woman and an Asian man. These are the only ones, and this is where it gets really complicated, and I'm not even really sure if I should be making this work or what I'm really thinking about with this. But a lot of it, to me, talks about race in America and how, like, in the older days, like, you wouldn't really see a lot of non-white people be the protagonist in media, in films or television. And today, of course, like, there's plenty of them. But when we look back on it, we're not looking back on it the same way that we look back at this really old media. I've always thought like that our pop culture is almost kind of like a pyramid or a funnel, whereas like in the old days when we only had like 3 television stations, like there wasn't much like distribution of culture. It was all really kind of tiny, like what is shown to people. And now it's gone in a much broader direction, um, and things just get more and more distorted, I think, as they go out, which is why this painting is so much more distorted than the other ones. But this is still an idea I'm still working on. I made this painting 8 years ago now, and I'm still afraid, almost. I wouldn't say afraid, but I'm still unsure of myself on whether I really should be doing work that's not talking about like who I am and where I come from. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, except so this is a more current
Yep.
show,
Yeah.
and I see how it gets more distorted. Do you think that at some point the references in this painting will become non-representational?
I have a few images that are non-representational. Like this image though too. This is one of the interesting things about this image. I painted it exactly what it looks like. Like the image that I screen captured looks just like this.
Okay.
Um, I intentionally tried to get it like really confused and pixelated, like using a different streaming service and using really terrible internet. Like nowadays, it's hard to get terrible internet. But you can find ways to do it. So this one I intentionally did that, and I've done it a few times. I have some that are almost just squares of color. But I just haven't got around to painting those yet, and I'm not really sure if I want to. But like I said, like this is the only one in this series that looks like this, and I'm still not sure like exactly what it's talking about, or if I should even be making something like this. So I'm really unsure, but I love this painting though so much. Like I love to show it, and I think it really fits with the body work. But like I said, I'm not sure if this is the direction that this body work should go.
Okay. I find it fascinating that you painted this exactly how it was presented to you. And yet it just looks like these images are blending into the background, like your uh, depth of space is being played with all over.
Mm-hmm.
On the different sides, the right and the left, it seems more obvious, but in the center, I mean, that's where it's like, what's forward, what's back. It's and if I would say anything about American culture, it's just like, yeah, forward, back. I don't know. It's hard to distinguish, what's now, what was, what will be. So,
Yeah, and
uh,
that's why I think the title fits so well with this because that was the title of the episode in The Walking Dead, like that because they title every episode. They're like that's the title of the episode. But then when I saw this image and thinking about the things that you're talking about, um, also thinking about the composition, and from that same episode, I had maybe about 10 different images that I captured, but this is the only one, in my opinion, that kind of worked. So that's why I painted it. What's happening too is like it's kind of doing a double image, like right in the middle of the painting. It almost splits to like a second image because like when you're watching TV and like there's an edit to a new scene, but like when they paused, it was right at that edit to a new scene and like had these two scenes like overlapping. So it,
okay,
it became
yeah.
really interesting in that way.
No, that's really very cool.
Yeah,
Um,
like I said, I love this painting, but I'm just still not sure if this is the right direction. Because like all the other stuff is to me is very clear about what it is and what it's talking about. Whereas this one is a lot harder for people who don't know the background of the series to really kind of latch on to. But
I think as an artist, when you get to a point in a series where it's evolving, because they always do, that when you are most unsettled, it's probably the direction you should be going in. So,
I've actually said that to some of my students.
well, there you go. Now I said it to you. And
Yep.
I also think that I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, I do know what I was going to say. I've never actually seen The Walking Dead. And so it was, many, many years of my life where I've been missing out. So,
It,
anyway,
it it's
yeah.
like any show where it goes up and down. There's really good parts and there's really bad parts. So
Okay. And then at what point did it jump the shark?
not too far after this episode.
Okay.
So it's somewhere around season 9 or season 10.
Okay.
I'd, I'd,
Well,
I'd say when Carl dies. But
okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for doing this interview with me. It's been a pleasure. I do want to say that we have the reception coming up. August 1st from 5 to 7 on a Friday. And um, I want to make sure everyone can come in and see the incredible detail going on in these paintings and uh, the work that goes into each one of these. When you see all the small squares painstakingly painted, it's just really it's amazing.
These are the
So
two brushes I usually use.
there you go. See, my gosh, the abuse. Um, I will say though that do you have anything else you'd like to mention before we finish up our interview?
Well, I'd like to thank you and everyone involved at the Pump House for having this show. I feel really grateful for being able to display my work there. I'm really grateful for this interview, and I hope a lot of people come out on Friday, August 1st and see it.
Okay, there you go. Everyone better be there. So thank you, David. Thanks for everyone who's watching. And just remember, August 1st, 5 to 7, Friday night, have a little dinner, come to the Pump House, and see David's art. So thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.